Okay, it is 9:50 a.m. I haven't traded anything, but I was looking at PRCX for a while to see if this could be something and that maybe it has this downtrend from the 88 sub penny level. It drops to the 60s right under VWAP, and then it eventually consolidates at this level, builds up support at the bid, and maybe try to break VWAP and make a move towards the upside, and perhaps try to maybe not be such a big red day, but like a break even day, or maybe even try to go green, although that would be kind of hard. It just didn't work out. The level 2 wasn't really supporting it. It just wasn't looking nice at price action, so I never took it. SYXX, if it drops enough, it can be like KG, and maybe it can try to do like an 11 a.m. reversal, but it's still too early to say something like that. I think it could even try to uptrend from here and make a move towards VWAP, but I have to look at this more to consider any kind of setup. No interest with DWAC, and that's really about it. I've said that NWBO was a dip under VWAP setup if I wasn't looking at PRCX. Ideally, I would have taken a setup here when it went under VWAP and it started to look like it was going to reverse, maybe an entry at 141, and the goal would be for it to break VWAP and continue. It did get to the 146s, so it wasn't that bad. I just didn't trade it again because I was looking at PRCX, but that was a pretty cool setup, and I'll keep looking for setups, nothing right now. Okay, it is 10:22 a.m. and before I go over the trade I had with the NWBO, this is actually a pretty interesting listed stock. It had a big panic the other day, but I wouldn't have traded it even if I were to have seen it because of how halty it was, but I was actually interested in this one right here, and even though it kind of worked, I'm glad I didn't take the trade because I accidentally had a $15 risk level right here, and I shouldn't be trading that much on a listed stock. I don't like listed stocks as much as OTCs because they can just randomly flash a big red candle and just be really painful. But this one is eventually trying to turn around. It broke this trend line that I had right here based off of the highs. And it eventually got to the 340s, but I didn't like how people were just dumping their shares and it kind of sold off. But I'll be looking to see what this one does ultimately, even if I don't trade it. And I did trade NWBO. Now, let's see if it tries to break 147 today, but I kind of liked it because it had the uptrend, it had this dip under VWAP setup, and then it started trading back and forth, so it felt like it was consolidating overall, and it was building support. The bid and the ask at first, the ask was super strong and the bid was super weak, but then it eventually started to show more strength on the bid. And then what really got me interested in this one was that I believe around right here I was seeing it, and it looks like it was potentially trying to break the 146 level and get to 147, and then the high is 148, so then it can continue to go even higher. And when somebody jumped in at 145 with 50,000 shares at the bid, that made it look super nice. And then it looks like 146 was about to be taken out. I was able, oh, let's see if it does it. Kind of weird the way it did that, but I don't like the wall at 149. It's like there's always a wall of sellers, but I mean, I guess we're fighting with a lot of resistance, I guess. It could be short sellers too, because this is a higher priced OTC. Somebody gonna get 149? They could do it, it's just not looking that strong. Anyway, I liked it because again, a 50,000 share bidder showed up at 145 and it looked like 146 was about to be taken out. I got out, not got out, I got in the trade right when it looked like it was going to do it, and it did. At 10:13, I was in at 146, which was right here, right before it transitioned to 146 and 147. And, the momentum wasn't there. It didn't seem like it was going to continue. Ideally, I would have liked it if it were to have broken 146, get to the high immediately, and then try to break that, and then continue the run over a longer period of time. It just didn't work out, and I sold for a slight profit because some of the shares must have been sold at 147, and I was out at 1015, which was in this candle. I got out because again, it just lost momentum. Although over a longer period of time, maybe this thing can try to do it. I did draw this little support trend line based off of these exaggerated wicks. So my idea was that if it were to have broken it and I'm still holding the setup, which I might, you know, have been better off doing, but I would have definitely cut it if it were to have broken the line. And I was thinking that worst case scenario, it just has a really sharp downtrend. It starts selling off. And I think my level to cut, or at least worst case scenario, would have been like, I think around 141 or 140, and that would have been a $15 loss. I'd have to make sure, but because the price was changing, and I didn't really want to take it at 146, but when it had that big bidder and it looked like it was going to get to the 147s and maybe higher, I had an interest. I'll make an update as to what this one does later, but that was a trade there, and maybe over a longer period of time, it can really make a move towards the upside, even if it is a third green day. Okay, it is 9:28 p.m. and I am here to call it off. Overall, I am up just a little 50 cents, and that was with a scratch with NWBO. And I'll go ahead and provide a screenshot of when I traded it. It was based again off of the idea that it was breaking this 146 level, which was resistance right here, and it was ideally going to uptrend and then maybe try to break the day high. And the way it did it, it was nice, and then it got to this new range, but I didn't like the topping action. I didn't like the selling action. I think I recorded in the last recording where it briefly broke the day high just a little bit, and then it came back and it wasn't nice looking. And I did have an exaggerated trend line, just like a worst case scenario. I'm going to cut it even if I were to have potentially have held this thing for a longer period of time. And I found it kind of interesting that once it broke that level, just a few minutes later, it just had a big sell off. So I guess I was fine trading with a very wide risk level. And yeah, I mean, it felt pretty hard. I was a little tempted to consider trading this, but I left it alone, and that was really it with this one. So I guess it's just going to be a matter of seeing what this thing can do tomorrow, and if there's going to be any other setups. As for this one did eventually get to that level, and it kind of came back and it tried again, but it wasn't really that nice. And this one, I guess I could have considered like a potential setup where it was around this 11 a.m. time period and it started the turnaround, but I wasn't really interested in it because it was only up 2 days and it didn't really do anything. Although it did try a move later, this would have been kind of random. I wouldn't have really have traded this one, but it was actually a nice one with SYXX because this one was up at least 3 days, and this is now in theory the fourth day, or maybe the third if you don't want to count this one, but I do. And I think it was cool because once it got to the 11 a.m. time period, it did kind of turn around, and it did make a nice move to VWAP and above it from the 46s. It got as high as 57, and even though it did continue later, I probably wouldn't have considered it maybe when it dips towards the VWAP level as a confirmation and then it continues. That could have been pretty cool, but this was a nice setup, and maybe if I was more aggressive, I could have taken it. I don't regret it too much. And you can also say this is a inverse head and shoulders, a shoulder and the head here and the shoulder. So I do kind of regret missing that one, but I think I did my best in the morning, just trying to trade anything that looks like a good setup. And that's really about it. MAPT is another uptrending one. It's not as nice, but I'll continue to watch it. It can be a nice, like breakout setup if it, decides to uptrend the next day and try to break the 75-ish level. So yeah, that's really about it. Just a scratch trade and a missed opportunity with SYXX. PRCX, the setup didn't really work, the 11 a.m. reversal, and I don't blame it. Again, it wasn't really up that nicely, and the volume isn't as nice. Yeah, that's all I have for today.